Hello folks, it's David here, and I would just like to take a moment to ask you to go and check out our sponsors NordVPN. Internet security, very important. I'm sure it's something that you're concerned about as well. Me, I like to know that I'm the person in control of my data. I live on my phone, and the amount of stuff I do on it, from banking to documents to private messaging, I need to know is secure. We all know that there are bad people out there who will come in and try and get our details and try and spend our money for us. NordVPN prevents that, especially if you're using public Wi-Fi's or you're using Wi-Fi's away from your home. If you use NordVPN, you are safe and protected. It also allows you to take short holidays to places if that's ever required. It's a brilliant product. I use it every day and highly recommend it. And you can get a tremendous offer if you go to nordvpn.com/heart and hand. That's nordvpn.com/heart and hand, or use the code heart and hand to get up to 70% off your NordVPN plan. You'll also get one additional month for free. Risk free with Nord. It's 30-day money back guarantee. So all you need to do if you don't like it is just say nope, and you'll get your money back. So go and check them out. As I say, it's very important. You'll get peace of mind. Go to nordvpn.com/heart and hand. Hello everyone, welcome to Heart and Hand Extra. My name's David Edgar, I am your host, and I'm delighted to be joined this week by none other than the best bust convener of all time. It's Andy McGowan. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing very well, David. I'm sure my bus members won't agree with that whatsoever.
Oh, that don't do yourself doing, son.
No, I'm being serious.
We better credit. Well, the listeners love you, and that's the most important thing. We're back, of course. The proper football has returned. The Premier League back this week. We're here to discuss the match against Aberdeen on Tuesday night, and then look ahead to the tie with Stirling Albion in the Cup this Friday night. So let's head up to Pittodrie Tuesday night, Andy. Not a good performance. It's got to be said.
No, it was disappointing. It was really disappointing because we just didn't do ourselves justice, is the way I would put it. And some of it was self-inflicted, some of it was our approach. A couple of areas of concern. I don't think there's anything to go too overboard with, but you can look into these games too much or too little for both better and worse. We've been up there and won when they've been absolutely rubbish, and you take too much from it. And then we've been up there and brought points like Tuesday. So I suppose balance is key. But, going to bed that on Tuesday night, I wasn't feeling good about things, no.
No, I think that it was the manner of the performance that was most concerning to me, because, look, I accept that you can go up there and the keeper makes 4 or 5 brilliant saves. That kind of thing can happen and you don't take your chances. But there was a complete lack of two things. One was creativity and one was intensity in our play. Now, I do take into account, and I think we do need to be fair, as frustrating as it is, that we are just back after a 3-week layoff, and that can affect people. That it's great if they come roaring out the traps, but history suggests that more often than not, all teams take a wee while to get back to their peak. And I think that if you looked at Aberdeen as well, it was kind of similar. I mean, they're not a good side, but watching the match back, the quality of it was really low. Tons of misplaced passes. Teams that couldn't string passes together, which obviously suits them more than it suits us. And we'll get to the referee, but I'm sure people are shouting at their device at the moment about that. Don't worry, we will get to that. But we just lacked cohesion. We lacked fluency. There wasn't a lot of invention, and it was a difficult performance to recommend. The guy I felt most sorry for, Andy, was Alfredo, because I thought he was holding the ball up, he was linking when he could, and he just wasn't getting the support.
Yeah, I mean, you take the context that we're missing midfielders. I think it's very, very clear now that Joe Aribo is a key man for us, and there's a key man risk there. You know, if he's not there, we sorely miss him within the Van Bronckhorst setup, since he's been given that wee bit more added responsibility. And that we had, you know, you're basically dropping the boy Sands in, which I think ideally you don't do that. You don't give him his debut at Pittodrie after a lifetime in MLS, which is obviously a different pace and intensity. So even taking into consideration, you know, we talk about our squad. We're quite proud of the fact that we've got a strong squad. We should be able to handle that. Mm-hmm. But what you've touched upon there, David, in terms of passing, I was disappointed that we seem to abandon a lot of the things that we've become accustomed to under Gerrard, which was control of the game, control of the ball, and dictating the way the game is going to go, which is passing. You know, we would pass the ball and pick our moments and control the midfield and work our way through teams that are less than us. And we didn't really do that at any point. And it became ever more increasing as the game went on, because, you know, territorially, Aberdeen just moved up the park because of it, because we weren't getting out to any degree. And it was more or less left to big switches of play, long balls over the top to the corners for Wright or Kent. I was disappointed with our build-up, and that shouldn't be the case, because even for what I'm saying about the midfield, if you've got Kamara and you've got Sands, who looks to be a ball player, you know, it looks as if he can take a ball and pass it and move it, and Hadji, who, you know, I've spoken about Hadji many times, I don't want to get a name for picking on him, but, you know, if you're going to play in central midfield in any form for Rangers, you need to have an ability to take the ball and either turn or move it on. So with A3 in the middle of the park, I still feel we should be moving through the gears and up the park in a coherent fashion. It wasn't there. So that was my biggest concern, and that's before we get to the kind of, I'm sure you'll come out of the entrenchment and the defence and the defending of the 1-goal lead.
I will, most certainly. On Hadji, you and I have had our disagreements on here. People will know that. And I've defended him a lot, but it's becoming tougher. He did score, and that's, you know, he does have that ability, and I've always said that about him. He can provide moments, but he does need to do more, because you can't just, you know, score a goal and then be howling the rest of the night. He's not a winger. I do feel for him a bit when he gets pushed out wide, because he doesn't have the pace to play that position, I don't think, in the system that we operate in. But, you know, that was the position he wants to play, and it just didn't happen at all. I think that the thing that frustrated me is we had the team, and you can see how it's supposed to function, but it quickly became almost a 4-2-4 with a huge gap between the 2 and the 4. And that allowed Aberdeen space to play in, and they would come at us. And you're right, we began to drop back. Now, the idea, of course, is then, well, we'll hit them in the break, but we didn't. You know, we did once in the first half, a superb goal. It really was brilliant from Alfredo to tee up right. He picks a great ball out. There's Ryan Kent, delivers a beauty, great run and finish from Hadji. Beautiful, right? It was an absolutely sublime moment, but we didn't do it again. You know, there were no real serious, dangerous breaks that we made enough of from there on in. And that allowed Aberdeen to push up on us. And, you know, we can't sit here and say Aberdeen were excellent, because they weren't. They worked hard enough. That some of their other tactics will come to paid off for them. But I thought that Rangers were insipid, really, and I thought that there was a passivity to our play the whole match. We never really looked like going and taking it. The first 15 minutes of the second half, folks, if you watch it, is rotten. Is absolutely rotten, to the point that the commentator actually says this game's waiting for somebody to grab it after 63 minutes. So the idea that you see, you know, the home team come out and they have a right go in the opening 15, and, you know, you come through that wasn't what was happening. It was a game that was scrappy, there was nothing happening, but Rangers seemed content with that, content to sit in the 1-0, and that was exemplified, I think, by the substitution, which I think by common consent people were a bit surprised by it, and it didn't work, bringing on John Lundstrom for Scott Wright, putting Hadji out wide, and that to me looked like, well, we'll see this out. And, you know, with half an hour still to play, Andy, that's a long time to see it out, because all it takes is somebody to hit a 30-yarder or a deflection or a mistake or a penalty, and that's what happened, and that's what cost us.
Aye, so if we go to that substitution, when that happened, my first reaction was, right, this is interesting. But I then, because I was sitting with my dad and he's like, what the France is going on here? And I says, well, I know what he's doing here. He's trying to get us a foothold in the middle of the park because, I'm sitting there saying, let's start passing the ball, use the midfield, work our way up the pitch by passing as opposed to long balls. And I thought, right, well, he's bringing Lundstram on to try and do that. They give us another person that can collect and move the ball from the back four. And so at that point, I'm like, right, see what he's trying to do. Wee bit defensive. Would have preferred them not to take off right. But very, very quickly, it became a case of, we've just entrenched ourselves even further. It's not worked, and we're not getting up the park. Now, Scott Wright wasn't having a good game, right? And if I'm criticising Hadji for not contributing enough in a game, then the exact same goes for Wright. And he's building up a wee bit of a, how can I say this, a record of falling short. He's getting opportunities, he's showing flashes, we can see he's got pace, he has odd moment, but he's still not reaching the levels that, would see him become a mainstay in the first team week in, week out. So to take him off, I thought, right, I liked what he was doing. He was causing attacking problems, and he was looking after Johnny Hayes in a defensive sense as well. So I could see that. But I'm going to talk about Lundstram just for a second, because we all know he came with a reputation. He played in the Premiership, that gives you a certain cachet. But he again is somebody that I want to grab a hold of and say, you need to aim here. Because there was a couple of occasions there when he came on, he got the ball in the middle of the park. I can see that he's got a good bit of space in front of him, and I want him to stride forward with it and bring the team up. But he doesn't. He checks and he turns in and it goes sideways. And for me, that is, it's either something that's, in his nature, it's maybe overcautious, but I want more from him. I want to see the fact that he can play as a number 4 or a number 8, supposedly. I want to see more of the number 8 from him, particularly when we're missing, a Rebo and so forth. So I was disappointed with Lundstram, and I know that is really, really harsh given that he came on with half an hour to go, but over the piece, I'm wanting more from him. I want to see more of what he did in that 3-4 game spell he had where he was man of the match every week. He needs to be braver going forward with the ball, stride forward with it. So that substitution did not pan out, and you could be generous and say it was to get us moving and collecting the ball. But I think how many games went into with Gio now? 9. I think we can take from Gio's mindset is that, this keep the zero is actually, it's pretty defensive in terms of defending the lead, because it's not a concern, but it was a note that I made over the piece. So St Mirren, we won 2-0, it should have been more. St Johnstone, we won 2-0, it should have been more. Dundee United, okay, 1-0, we struggled there, that was fine. Hearts, we should have scored 2 or 3 more at Tynecastle. And, they hit the post, things like that went our way that day. I would prefer for Gio, especially domestically, just keep going, because these teams are not good enough to actually, we shouldn't be having to sit in with them. I like to see that just be a wee bit braver in his mindset. Understand that it's Dutch, classic Dutch, isn't it? I don't think we're good enough defensively or good enough in attacking, counter-attack to actually fulfil what he's wanting to do just now. I don't know what you're thinking yourself, David.
I just don't like any team, even if you're as good as Manchester City at keeping the ball. Football is such a random game that we've all seen it. The big centre half who hasn't completed a pass gets the ball 35 yards out and leathers one, and he'll never hit a ball like that again in his life. But it's why we love football, the random nature of it. Last night I was sitting watching Leicester City 2-1 up with 30 seconds left lose a football match. That's why it's always a case that you run a risk, and a second, particularly in the second half, I think would have put the game to bed. But we didn't play with an intensity that suggested that we wanted to go and get it. We seemed content to kind of hold what we have. And I just think in any sport, but particularly in football, if you try to see it out rather than go and win it, then you leave yourself open to a reverse. And the worst part, Andy, is I can't say Aberdeen at the end were fortunate to get a point, because they weren't. It was a fair result, unfortunately. Going to have to talk about the referee. Now, you and I have had criticism in the past from people because we've said we don't think referees are biased, we think they're bad. In this instance, I think you can be both. It's an unjustifiable display from Clancy, and not for the first time, but it was a ridiculous performance, given Aberdeen free kicks simply because they shouted for one. There didn't appear to have to be contact. The Ryan Kent bookings, which were, awful refereeing. But then miss Annie's linesman is guilty in this as well. There's a couple of incidents I want to highlight. Firstly, Borna Barisic gets elbowed twice, right? Now, that's bad enough that was missed. But Barisic is then lying on the ground, and watch the clip, folks. He turns to the referee and he notices he's got blood coming. He says, "I need treatment." Did you not see that? He hit me in the face. And the referee tells him to get up. And Barisic said, "I need treatment. I've got blood coming from my nose." And the referee tells him to get up. But a minute later, Scott Brown tells the referee he's got blood. He needs to go off. He's got blood coming down onto his shirt. The referee makes him go off at that point when Rangers are defending a free kick, thus leaving us down to 9 men to defend a free kick. That's the kind of thing that can have a material impact on the game. There's then another incident right at the end where he has the whistle to his lips. He's announced 4 minutes injury time. It's 94:57. He has a whistle. He's checked his watch. He has a whistle to his lips, and he notices Aberdeen get a free kick. He then get a goal kick. He then allows them another 30 seconds to get the ball into the box, from which they make a chance. Call me paranoid, Andrew, but the charge sheet is pretty big there.
Kevin Clancy is as weak as piss, and anybody as weak as that has no place officiating at fucking Largs Thistle, never mind a top flight game. And but we're talking about bias there. I don't subscribe to it, but what you've just said to me there makes you wonder, right? And without delving into mad paranoia territory and filming documentaries about how hard done Rangers are, and we know the penalty decision with McGregor went for us and so on and so forth, but to go back to the fact that he's so weak, Scott Brown had him on a bit of string that night. He absolutely, and it was embarrassing to watch because even early doors, Brown was doing the thing where, and listen, I'm not saying this is bad or wrong. This is part of football. We need to be wise to it. But the slightest, he was touched by a player's aura, he went down. And slightest wee thing, and Clancy was given a free kick. Really, really soft free kicks for anything and everything. And then it just kind of exponentially grew for there because Brown, as a professional and all he did is knew I've got him on toast. He's doing everything I'm telling him to do. It was like the ghost of Willie Miller and it took him over because that's exactly what Willie Miller used to do in the 80s. And Clancy just get gradually worse and worse and worse. Now, whether it plays on his mind during the game that he's thinking I'm having a stinker here, but I don't know. I don't know what a referee's mindset is. But the things you've just highlighted there are beyond the pale because the one with Barisic and the elbows, it's right in front of the linesman. It could not have been any closer. The linesman's right next to him. And Hayes' movement, it isn't as if, Hayes isn't 6'5", right? So his elbow is not down by his side, or his arm isn't down by his side. He twice moves it up the way towards his face.
It's also not a handoff because I do have a bit of sympathy for players that, but there's a way you do that and there's a way where you swing your arm up and make a crook with your elbow, and it was the latter. Against
your opposing player's chest, for example.
Yes.
Hold off their torso. Right, see if it's as high as their face, you've committed a foul. He done it twice in the space of 5 seconds, not even 5 seconds, 3 seconds. And blood strewn face. And the linesman and the referee aren't savvy enough to say, right, let's stop the game. If Barisic had went sat down in his arse, would he have stopped the game? I don't know, because Barisic was then...
Barisic did sit down and ask for treatment, which he was refused. Now, another thing about that was it was a head knock. So, even if you think he's at it, you are bound and obliged to do it. Then the timing of when he sent him off, he could hold the game up and say, you're down to 9 men, this could have a material impact in the game. He chose not to do it. Barisic then gets the treatment and is ready to come on, and he doesn't immediately wave him on. It was a dreadful, dreadful performance from a referee. Rangers attempted 20 tackles the other night. Statistically, folks, Rangers attempted 20 tackles and had 21 fouls given against us. Now that's some going. Aberdeen attempted 30 tackles and had 7. It's not the first time. That's the problem. We remember Alfredo Morelos. Parkhead, clearly, but we remember last season Alfredo Morelos leaving the park with a hole in his leg and didn't even get a free kick in a match versus Dundee United. I don't necessarily just think it's us, because I've spoken to fans of other clubs and they tell me that he ruins their games too. And I've banged on about this week, but I think it's a legit point. What is the criteria of assessment for referees? Because if you and I regularly do bad podcasts, we don't have an audience. If players perform badly, they're dropped and then maybe sold to a lower level and eventually drop out the game. If a manager does badly, he's fired. Who's assessing referees, and what happens if they do badly? Or is it a case that once you become a Premier League referee, that's you for life? You've got tenure, because that's what it seems to be. The other thing about it is that there was an article in the Rangers Review by Derek Clark, and I think that this bears repeating. There's this thing that whenever a defence is made of referees, that they're volunteers, right? Mm-hmm. They're part-timers. It's not their full-time job. They earn £1,000 a match. Kevin Clancy was paid £1,000 for that the other night. Now, if you do 40 games over a season, which is in no way impossible to do, then you're earning obviously £40,000. That's a lot of money for a hobby. That's a good salary. That's way up on the national average salary on top of your day job. Now, Clancy's day job, he's a lawyer. That's quite a tough job. You're expected to work long hours. Can we be surprised that a guy who is doing that and then reffing in his spare time, how much spare time does he have to dedicate himself to refereeing, to be better, to be at a good standard? And we've got these professional matches where Rangers and Celtic are playing for a £30 million reward, and we've got a guy who comes along here after a busy day at the office. I think there's something backwards here, Andy. I really do.
No, you've summed it up. I mean, Gerrard at the start, I think it was the start of last season, maybe. I can't remember, but anyway, he kind of made a commitment that he was going to be fair to referees, because I think it was outspoken once or twice, and then he really selling after kind of dialogue with the authorities. And I applauded that. I thought that is a good place to be for Rangers, because we should be leading the way in terms of, we need referees, and we should be sympathetic to them a point for many of the reasons you've just given there in terms of professionality and resource. But here, I think now that there's a case that we're doing ourselves an injustice, right? Because just for a second, Clancy alone, the Kent sending off, right? You will never ever see 2 bookings as soft as that result in a red card if you watch football all year, every day. And then you go back to that game at Parkhead, we talk about the penalty he gave against Katic, remember?
Yes.
You will never ever see that penalty given in 1,000 games of football. That's where you start to say, right, hold on a wee minute, is this guy really that bad, or is it just me? Now, what can you do to make him better? You could become professional, right? But does that increase fitness? Does that increase alertness, sharpness? It should do. Well, I think the kind of the depth that he's gone to in terms of ability and decision making is so far off what's required. I think you could say to him, you're a professional, and every waking minute you work on the laws of the game and fitness and sprinting and check his eyesight every day. I don't think it would make much difference. It's still when they bring him up to standard.
I think you're probably right there, but as a general thing, we're spending vast sums of money on watching this, right? And it is football, and it does matter, and it's a huge part of people's lives. And we're getting guys who are dilettantes, guys who show up a couple of hours a week and do this. But they're being very well rewarded for it. And I think we're in a legit position to say, right, we'll up the money a bit, but you are going to have to sacrifice. This isn't a second career. You either do this or you don't. And in the way that, young boys have to give up other things to follow their dream to be in football, I don't see how that's unfair to ask referees to do the same. Yeah,
so I'm going to, without going down a rabbit hole here, you've got a problem in that culture, David, because you mentioned there, he's a solicitor, works for a big firm. The environment he works in lends itself to being a referee, because if he was a referee and he was a bricklayer, he wouldn't be able to go to work because he'd end up in a cement mixer or something. That's the difference. Everybody that's a referee usually comes from a certain social strata.
Correct.
And it lends themselves to being able to do what he did on Tuesday night without, and I'm not saying there should be repercussions, please don't misinterpret what I'm saying here, but without being abused in his workplace, or for somebody saying, by the way, you are absolutely whatever. You know, that'll not happen to him when he goes in the office in a professional place like a solicitor's firm the day after. So if you go to professional levels for referees in Scotland, the money that would need to be paid to extract the likes of him, and you know, call him a teacher, a principal teacher, to take them from that safe environment to become a professional referee, you would end up with professional referees getting paid more than some of the players on the pitch, right? When you look at, you know, the likes of St Mirren and, you know, the pay at the lower end of the scale. So I think it's about a pipe dream. I don't think the money's in Scottish football at all. We talk about VAR. I mean, if we get VAR, would we have enough people on a Saturday, given all the football that goes on at all levels, to man the VAR to a degree that's required? I just think that there needs to be a whole root and branch reform of refereeing, and part of that is attitudes towards referees. Part of that is looking at us, and I'm talking about Celtic here. You look at what they have done to the refereeing landscape over the last 10 years, with foreign referees coming, for Christ's sake, because of the stink they kicked up over, I can't remember his name, but the guy up at Dougie Hope or something? I can't remember. Anyway, they started that. Dougie McDonald, that's it. Dougie Hope was years ago. But they kind of started that. They perpetuated it. They get away with it. They didn't get chastised for it. And they've repeated it. I mean, we can go back to the AGM, and it was a bankier, their chairman, is basically saying we keep an eye on referees and we speak to the authorities. What is that? That is putting pressure in a pretty clandestine way against referees. That is a disgrace. Mm-hmm. So that starts the environment that we operate in, and this is where I think we're doing ourselves a disservice, because we then, as a club, we either have to stand our ground and join in and try to fight your corner to get that as well, right? Which I don't want Rangers to do. But there, after that game on Tuesday night, Gio van Bronckhorst and Tavernier, club captain, on the telly, and they mention it. Actually, they avoided it. Now, that's fine, dignified, all the rest of it, but who wins out of that?
Yeah.
I don't think it's us. It's a race to the bottom, which is killing refereeing in Scotland.
I think that the argument against it is, well, it won't change it. No, it won't change it overnight. No, you're absolutely right, but you still need to do it, because that's, you still need to make it an issue, and if it's not an issue, then it's far easier to continue to sweep under the carpet, and I think that's what we're seeing, and it's why, incidentally, we should do it when we win, and we've seen an abysmal referee performance, which we've seen plenty, because of course it can be written off as sour grapes after a bad result, and I totally understand that, and if I was an opposition fan, I would do exactly the same. But that's why, if we've seen a horrendous, and we've seen plenty in games that Rangers have won comfortably, that we should be coming out and saying it then and highlighting. And for me, it's a standards thing, because it's either that they're cheating or they're not good enough. So either way, they shouldn't be refereeing. And until we address it, it's just going to get worse. Moving on then, Andy, we take on Stirling Albion in the Cup on Friday night. It's great to get back to Ibrox. It's great to always enjoy a Friday night under the lights game, and very much looking forward to it. It's a tough one in a sense, not because of the match, but I would really have liked a league game, after the disappointment of that night, to get right back to it. But it is what it is. We'll get on with it. Now, the manager has said we're going to see some players that we don't usually see. We welcome back Kemar Roofe and Leon Balogun, he said today. Roofe's going to be a big one, because with the news that Alfredo is going to be off playing for Colombia and missing a couple of weeks' fixtures, then he is going to have to step up.
Is he going to Jamaica?
I don't know at the moment. Hasn't been announced.
Because I hadn't even thought of that. I was thinking about Cedric Itten, to be honest. But so this is an interesting part about Friday, is it gives you the opportunity to bring fringe players, but key players into the starting 11, to give them some minutes in the legs. Roofe for me is our, he's our dark horse, because we often forget about him because he's in and out of the team that much, and then he gets the odd injury here or there, but he contributes so much. Just look at what he did at Easter Road. Okay, it was a penalty, but he's a guy you want to see come on. There's no a drop off in quality, generally speaking, when he comes off the bench, and his movement's fantastic. And he's arguably the best finisher at the club now that Defoe's gone. So him, but I'm also interested, David. So people say, right, you don't like Hadji, Andy, but you like Cedric Itton. Explain that one. I want to see Itton get a proper crack. And I'm interested to see what he'll do under Van Bronckhorst and Roy Mackay, because I just think that when we looked at what he did in Austria, Switzerland, sorry, or was it Austria? Switzerland, wherever he was playing before he signed for us.
Switzerland, yeah.
Switzerland, all his games, all his goals were balls into the box, headed finishes, first time finishes, in and around the 6-yard box, because there was a supply to him. That is his game. And I think, and I suspect, that the way Van Bronckhorst plays, that tweak he's made with the wingers, where they're just that bit wider and they're told to be a bit more direct, and the striker is told to get in between the 18-yard lines, would suit him to a T. Problem is, he's not going to displace Morelos, is he?
It's time for the Rangers Pools Question of the Week. Answer this week's question for the chance to win exclusive Rangers prizes such as matchday tickets, signed merchandise, plus there is an Edmondson House package up for grabs. This week's question is, who was Rangers manager in the 2011-12 season? Think you know the answer? Then go visit www.rangerspools.com and click on the Question of the Week banner on the homepage. Also remember, every time you play Rangers Pools, you're supporting the club and the build of new Edmondson House, all whilst being in to win some huge cash prizes. Best of luck.
So, I'll be interested to see who starts with Friday night, David, whether it's Itton straight through the middle or if it's Roof. I suspect it'll be Itton, because if you're going for a like and you're looking forward to not just Parkhead, but any time in the future where Morelos isn't available, I think Itton's a more natural like for like than Roof. But, I know there'll be an argument that Roof can drop deep like Morelos far better than Itton. So that's the thing I'm looking for on Friday is, I want to see goals. I want to see people stake a claim and show what they're worth. I don't want folk to come in and just fizzle out and you're like, what can they contribute if they can't contribute in a cup tie underneath the lights against Stirling Albion?
I think there's also a need to get a bit of momentum going. And by that, I remember a couple of years ago, we played a cup tie just after we came back from the winter break. And we all know that it proved to be a disastrous winter break for us. This is season 1920. And we came back with a cup tie, we were rotten, and we won 2-0, and it wasn't much of a match, in all honesty. You can't, because it is just unthinkable that Rangers lose this match, right? So it's not about just getting through. It's about winning, and winning well, and winning comfortably, and putting on a show and scoring a few goals, because we need to build that momentum. We do have now, as annoyed as we all were by the draw, if you look at the results since Giovanni came in, we would absolutely all have taken them. The day he took over, we were 4 points clear of Celtic with, as we all said, our most difficult run of fixtures coming up. And we are now sitting here with all those fixtures, bar a trip to Parkhead, done, and we are 4 points clear of them. So we're in a good position. If you look at our next run of fixtures, it's a good run of fixtures. With Livingston at home, Ross County away, you would be expecting, no disrespect to either of those, Livingston are doing really well at the moment, Ross County just coming off a great win in midweek, but even so, you would expect us to take 6 points in these matches. It wasn't a disaster. We're in a really, really good place. But we all know how momentum goes in football. When you have it, it's great. When you don't, you're aware of it and people get angry and upset. So tomorrow night to me is important, not just about winning, but winning well, getting a performance, getting a few goals, hopefully see some of the youngsters, Lowry, McCann and King are in the squad, be good to see them. And then on to Livingston, on to Ross County, wins in those, and we're in a good spot.
No, that's a very wise description of where we're at. Because I told me that on Tuesday night. Then I would have been punching my pillow in my sleep.
I was the same. I didn't, it was like I looked at the clock and it's 6 o'clock in the morning and I've been replaying incidents in my mind all night.
You just going to bed?
I genuinely, no, I went to bed at like 2:30, and as I say, just sitting, watching the game over and, projecting it onto my eyelids and watching it back and going, why could you not do that? And it's true, because it was a disappointment. We had the lead, we should have seen it, and we would have been in a great position still. But we are in a good position. That run of fixtures, we did the hard work and we put ourselves into a good spot. But equally, if you were, we know how it works at Rangers. If you were to lose or drop points in either of the two fixtures coming up, then the reaction will be bedlam, and we aren't in such a good position anymore. So for me, if you look at these three fixtures coming up, they're pretty ideal. Get a chance to go in, play in front of the fans, score a few goals, play well, get minutes into the legs of players. Then you've got Livy at home. As I say, tough game, because Livy are well organised and playing well, but you'd expect to win it. If you're, we're the champions after all. Trip to Ross County, again, they'll give us a game. Ross County have scored 4 against us this season. 2-4-2 matches, but you would again expect us to win. It's a ground traditionally we do well at, and that's the reality of the situation we're in. We have an opportunity over the next month, I think, to go and win this title.
I agree. I think, it sounds stupid. Of course, Parkade's a big game, but we're in a driving seat. We should be looking at exactly as you've described it there, that we go and kill this, right? The flip side of it is, as I always say, you recover from your setbacks. That's what defines champions. So if we go to Parkhead and we drop points, or we get beat, and we're a point ahead, or they go a point ahead, that is bugger all. We lose it all. We lose our shit nowadays unless we're sitting in a comfortable position. That's not how it works. And I seen some kind of stats on Twitter yesterday where it showed the number of points we'd won the league by since some ridiculous, like 1960, and it was always like single digits, apart from some outliers like last season and Advocates first season. So we'll drop points, they'll drop points, we'll have good results, they'll have bad results, vice versa. This is football. We know what we need to do, but we need to keep our head. I like cool heads, and I like to see people that you go in, and if you get a kick in the balls, you get on with it and you move forward. That's how you recover. I was almost quoting Rocky there, but I can't remember it, and I'll do it did injustice, and everybody will shout at me. But we're in a good position. See if we actually look at it now, David. What's hurt isn't anything that Van Bronckhorst did. It's the 6 points we dropped under Gerrard.
It absolutely is.
They are killers, and they're ones that I'm sitting there saying, fucking hell, they really, really hurt, because we could be sitting 9 or 10 points ahead just now, and you're going to Parkhead with a free hit, and those are the ones that I hope we don't look back on further down the line and say, that's where we cost ourselves. So, we've got a good squad, we've got a track record, we've got the mentality. There's nothing to suggest that. You look at Tuesday, and in some ways you look at it and you say, right, we still out. We went down to 10 men, we're under cosh. We've got a referee like that. We saw it out. So you might look back and say, right, actually that point was decent. So I'm sanguine about it. Ask me again in a couple of weeks, David.
Absolutely. If we're sitting here after 3 good victories in the next 3 matches, I think we'll all be in a very good place. Anything less, we won't be, but that's Rangers. And that's the pressure that comes of playing for a top side like us. Andy, a quick prediction for tomorrow night before I let you go?
I think 5-0.
I was going for 5 as well, folks. So there's your line. Right. Thank you to Andy for joining us. Thank you to executive producers in London, Mike Lee and Paul Myers. Please check out our sponsors, folks. And of course, if you want to hear more from all of us, Andy and I are just become part of what I think is going to be one of our best ever shows over on Heart and Hand Patreon. Dominant, the story of Graham Souness and Walter Smith, 86 to 98 at Rangers, with Martin Ramsey hosting and doing the work on it. And certainly the early reviews are very promising. So go and check that out. From just £1.50 per month, you can sign up to be on the Heart and Hand Patreon. Honestly, I'm cutting my own throat there. Thanks for listening to us, folks. We'll be back on Monday with the next Free Heart and Hand podcast. Until then, have a great weekend. Bye-bye.